Our last task in cleaning the watch movement is called pegging the jewel holes. The little jewels that are used as bearings for the different parts of the watch movement have tiny holes in them that the spindles for the wheels fit into. These holes are so small that even though we ran the parts through our cleaning machine, it didn't necessarily get all the oil and grease and dirt out of those tiny holes. And so what we need to do is mechanically clean them. And the way that that is done is by taking a piece of pegwood, which is a very, very thin piece of wood, and we sharpen the tip of the wood with a razor blade or an X-Acto knife, or you can even use sandpaper to do this. You have to have a very, very sharp point on it to fit into the tiny hole in the jewel. And we just stick this into the hole in the jewel and kind of twirl it around with our fingertips. And we do that with every jewel, and we do it from both sides of the jewel, from the top side and the bottom side. And because the tip is so thin and delicate, you'll probably have to resharpen it after you do each jewel, because just sticking it in the jewel and spinning it around is going to distort that fine tip and dull it enough that it won't fit into the next jewel. And it also, because sometimes it's going to be pulling dirt and dried grease and such out of those, or dried oil out of the jewels, resharpening it also gives you a clean point to work with. That way you're not transferring dirt from one jewel to another. Now, we don't use something like a pencil sharpener for this, because you want there to be some facets or sharp edges on the edge of the point, which you can see as I'm rotating this here. That helps clean it out better than if you had one that was just a smooth cone-shaped point. I don't know how well this is going to show on camera, but we'll see here. Oh, I just crushed the tip on that one. All right, I had to resharpen my piece of pegwood, so we'll see if we can make this work again now. If you're not careful sticking it into the holes, you can crush the fine tip that you've put onto the pegwood, and that's exactly what I did. And it's because I'm not used to doing this under the camera. I'm used to doing it by looking at it very closely through an eye loupe, and I'm trying to demonstrate this here, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get a good demonstration of it. You can see it's distorting the tip as I'm pushing it in there. So I'm going to have to resharpen it again before we do the next one, but we do that same process for all of them from both the front and the back side. So I'd have to flip this over and hold it in my hand so that I don't crush the little spindle there on that wheel. That's the center wheel. You're going to find jewels in a watch movement on the main plate. There's going to be a large number of them on the main plate. There will be jewels on the balance bridge. There'll be a jewel on the bridge that holds the top spindle for the pallet fork. And there's also going to be jewels on this bridge here, which is the train bridge. It holds the drivetrain gears. The number of them depends on the design of the watch movement. This one here I think has 15 jewels in total. This is the most frustrating and most difficult thing I've had to do so far. Just getting the wood sharp enough that it'll fit in those tiny holes is difficult, and then getting it in there without crushing the tip of it before I get it even in the hole was something of a challenge. And sometimes when I was pegging the holes, the tip would actually break off in the hole, leaving wood stuck in the jewel hole, which is not good. You got to get that out of there. So I had to pull it out with tweezers, looking at it through a very strong loop. So nothing I've done so far has been as difficult as pegging the jewel holes. I'm hoping everything else is going to be easier than this, because this was a very, very difficult task to do. And it's time consuming, because like I said, after every hole you're going to have to resharpen your piece of pegwood. I sharpen it by looking at it through a loop as I'm sharpening it to make sure that I get a really, really fine point that'll fit in those tiny holes. So this is not an easy task, but it's a very important one. If you don't peg the jewel holes, if there's any residual dried up oil or dirt in those holes, it will make it much more difficult for the wheels to turn as they should. And that's going to rob your watch of amplitude and slow it down, maybe even killing the timekeeping accuracy. And I think that was the problem with this watch to begin with. It had a very low amplitude, and it was losing about 5 minutes a day, which is really, really bad. And I think the low amplitude, which is caused by the movement being dirty, was the cause of that. So this is a very, very important task to do.